The clock on the nightstand glowed red. 3:14 a.m. I woke up not because of a noise, but because of the cold emptiness beside me. The space where my husband should have been was empty. Then I heard it. Whispers drifting up from the hallway downstairs. I held my breath, straining to listen. It was Marcus, my husband of 25 years, and the other voice, sharp and thin like a needle, was his mother, Matilda. "The 25th anniversary is the perfect time," Marcus murmured. His voice was low, urgent. "She will not suspect a thing," Matilda hissed back. "That woman has lived in a fog for 20 years." A cold dread, sharp and icy, crept up my spine. "The condo has to be secured, Marcus." Matilda pressed. "Dawson says we have to do it right. Publicly." "I know, Mama. It will be." I squeezed my eyes shut, my heart hammering against my ribs. The condo. My condo. What were they planning? The floorboard in the hall creaked. I quickly turned onto my side, facing the window, my breathing heavy and even. I forced my body to go limp, praying I looked asleep. The bedroom door opened, spilling a sliver of hallway light across the carpet. I felt the mattress dip as Marcus slid back into bed. He was careful not to touch me. He lay perfectly still, but I could feel the restless energy coming off him in waves. He thought I was oblivious. He thought I was a fool. Maybe I had been. We had been married for 25 years, a quarter of a century, right here in Atlanta. I met Marcus at a Spelman Morehouse mixer. He was ambitious, charming, and he looked at me like I was the only person in the world. We married right after graduation, full of love and dreams. We wanted a big family, 3, maybe 4 children. We imagined this condo a wedding gift from my parents, filled with the sound of laughter. But the children never came. We went through the painful years of doctors, the invasive tests, the unexplained infertility diagnosis. It broke something in Marcus. He was a man who believed in legacy, in a name to carry on. His mother, Matilda, never let me forget it. "A man needs heirs, Eleonora," she would say at Sunday dinners, her eyes scanning our quiet, empty home with pity. "A legacy is all that matters." In time, the silence in our home became a cold distance between us. Marcus focused on his career in finance, and I built my own at the accounting firm. We became 2 polite, quiet roommates sharing a roof, but not a life. The love had not just died. It felt like it had been surgically removed. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm. Marcus was already in the bathroom, the shower running. I lay there, the 3 a.m. whispers echoing in my head. The condo has to be secured. Publicly. When he came out wrapped in a towel, he smiled at me. It was a big, bright, false smile that did not reach his eyes. "Eleonora, my love," he said, his voice dripping with a sweetness I had not heard in a decade. "I was thinking for our 25th anniversary. We have to do something big. Really big." I sat up, pulling the comforter around my shoulders. "Big, Marcus? We have not celebrated our anniversary in years. That is why we must—" He bustled around the room, dousing himself in expensive cologne, the scent thick and choking. "I want everything to be perfect for you." My blood ran cold. This sudden affection, this performance, it was the realest alarm bell. It was the confirmation. He was setting a stage. "That is thoughtful, Marcus," I said, keeping my voice neutral. He kissed my cheek, his lips cool. "I've got to run to an early meeting. We will talk about the party tonight." He practically sprinted out of the room. I listened until I heard the front door click shut and the elevator ding in the hallway. I threw back the covers and went straight to his study. His laptop was on the desk. He always used a simple password, our original anniversary. I typed it in. Access denied. My heart pounded. He had changed it. After 25 years, he had secrets. I tried his birthday. Denied. Matilda's birthday. Denied. I sat back thinking, what was important to him now? The condo? I tried the date he signed onto the deed months after we were married. Denied. Then a bitter thought crossed my mind. I typed in our anniversary, but reversed. Welcome, Marcus. The browser was already open. My eyes scanned the history. How to divorce and keep the condo in Georgia. Spousal rights and property division if a name is added to a deed. Legal advice for separation in Atlanta. Painless divorce. My hands were shaking. I scrolled down, page after page of searches from the past 3 weeks. He was not just thinking about it. He was planning. The 3 a.m. whispers were not a nightmare. They were the minutes of a conspiracy. My husband was planning to take my home, my security and my dignity, and he was planning to do it publicly. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen. The woman staring back looked tired, old, and afraid. No, I whispered to her. Not this. Not my home. He had forgotten who I was. He had forgotten who my father was. He had forgotten that I was the one who balanced the books not just at my firm, but for this entire household for 25 long years. He had started a war. He just did not know I was already on the battlefield. I sat there, the glow of the laptop screen, illuminating my face until my legs went numb. How to keep the condo. He had searched that phrase 7 times in 1 week. He was not just planning a divorce, he was planning a theft. The sudden sharp buzz of the intercom made me jump, slamming the laptop shut. I looked at the clock. 10 a.m. Marcus was at his early meeting. I pressed the button. Yes. Eleonora, dear, it is Matilda. Let me up. It was not a request. My stomach twisted. Matilda never visited without an invitation, and never this early. I buzzed her in my mind racing. The 3 a.m. call, the laptop, and now the co-conspirator was at my door. I opened it just as she stepped off the elevator, her sharp perfume preceding her. She was dressed for a luncheon, not a casual visit in a stiff Chanel suit and pearls. Matilda, what a surprise. I was in Buckhead for a committee meeting and thought I would stop by. She lied smoothly, brushing past me into the foyer. Her eyes, small and dark, immediately began scanning the living room. She ran a white-gloved finger along my mother's mahogany sideboard. You really must get a new service, Eleonora. The dust in this place. It is clean, Matilda. If you say so, dear, she murmured. She moved through the room like an appraiser, eyeing the art, the furniture, the heavy silk drapes my parents had paid for. She was evaluating her future property. Sit down. Can I get you some coffee? I asked, my voice tighter than I wanted. No, I cannot stay long. She settled into the wingback chair, positioning herself like a queen on a throne. I am worried about Marcus. I paused. Worried he seemed fine this morning. Excited even. About the party. Matilda waved a dismissive hand. Oh, the party. Yes, a good idea. A man in his position needs to maintain appearances. She leaned forward, her expression turning to one of fake concern. Eleonora, you and I are women of a certain age. We must be practical. Marcus is 53. He is at the peak of his career. He needs... She paused as if searching for the right word. He needs vitality around him. He needs a legacy. There it was. The same old wound she had been poking for 20 years. Matilda, we have been over this. We could not have children. Perhaps you could not. She said, the barb sliding in effortlessly. But a man's line. It must continue. Have you ever thought, dear, what will happen to all this? When you are gone? My breath hitched. When I am gone. I am sure Marcus has it handled. I said, my voice ice. But does he? She pressed her voice, dropping to a confidential whisper. That is what worries me, which is why I came. Papers, Eleonora. One must be so careful with papers. I stared at her, saying nothing, letting the silence stretch. She finally broke, her smile tightening. The deed, dear. The deed to this condo. Where do you keep it? My heart hammered, but I kept my face a perfect serene mask. She was fishing. She wanted to know if it was accessible, if it was somewhere Marcus could get it. Why, Matilda? Oh, just Prudence. She trilled a little too loudly. With the anniversary, I thought it would be a perfect time to get all your ducks in a row. You know, update Will's beneficiaries. You would not want this lovely home to be tied up in probate, would you? She wanted to get her hands on it. She and Marcus were looking for a loophole, a way to take it before the public announcement. I gave her a slow, sweet smile, the kind of smile she always mistook for weakness. That is so thoughtful of you to worry, Matilda. But I do, dear, I do. You can rest easy. All of our vital documents, including the deed, are in our safe deposit box at the bank, double locked. Only Marcus and I have keys. It was a lie. The deed was in my home office filing cabinet, right where it had been for 25 years. I saw the flash of annoyance in her eyes. It was tiny, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She had come here to find it, to take it, and I had blocked her. Oh, she said, her voice flat. The bank. Well, that is sensible. She stood up abruptly, her mission a failure. I must be going. My committee is waiting. I walked her to the door. She paused on the threshold. Eleonora, she said, looking me up and down. You are looking a bit tired. You should really do something about yourself before the party. We want to look our best, do not we? The door clicked shut behind her. I leaned against it, the adrenaline draining away, leaving me shaking. The 3 a.m. whispers were real. The browser history was real. Matilda's visit was the reconnaissance. They were not just planning. They were executing, and they thought I was a dusty, tired old woman who would simply step aside. Not in my house, I whispered. I watched Matilda disappear into the elevator, her back rigid with indignation. I closed the door and locked the deadbolt. My own home suddenly felt like a fortress under siege. That evening, Marcus came home in a wave of false cheer. He walked in carrying a bouquet of flowers so large it was comical. Lilies. He knew I hated lilies. Their smell reminded me of funerals. For my beautiful wife, he boomed, thrusting them at me. And these, he produced a large gold box of Godiva chocolates. I had not received flowers from him since our 10th anniversary. I took the bouquet, the cloying, heavy scent filling my lungs. Thank you, Marcus. What is the occasion? The occasion. It is our 25th baby. He kissed my cheek, a dry peck. I've been thinking about it all day. This party is going to be the talk of Atlanta. He loosened his tie, walking into the living room. I'm thinking 100 people, maybe more. All our friends, my colleagues, my boss. I want everyone to see how much I love you, how strong we are after all this time. The hypocrisy was so thick I could barely breathe. He was not planning a celebration. He was selling tickets. He was going to use our entire social circle, everyone we respected, as witnesses to my execution. He wanted to leave me with nothing, not just no home, but no dignity. 100 people. I repeated, arranging the funereal flowers in a vase. That sounds extravagant. Nothing is too extravagant for you, he said, not even looking at me, already checking his phone. I'm going to hop in the shower, he announced, pulling off his jacket. Long day, lots of meetings. Of course, I said. I will think about dinner. The moment I heard the water running, I went to his jacket. I checked the pockets. Nothing. Just a wallet and his keys. He had left his phone on the charger by the bed. I stared at it. I had never in 25 years gone through his private phone. It had felt like a violation of the trust that was once the bedrock of our marriage. Now that bedrock was sand. As I watched the screen lit up, a calendar reminder. Call C over 11. Tomorrow. My blood went still. C, not Sanchez from Seattle. Just C. I stood there, the name Matilda echoing in my head. C. The shower shut off. I backed away from the phone just as the bathroom door opened. He came out toweling his hair, that same wide, empty smile plastered on his face. So what do you think for dinner? He asked. Maybe we should order in, celebrate. That is fine. I said, my voice quiet. I let him get dressed, pulling on his expensive silk robe. Oh, Marcus, I said as if the thought had just struck me. Your phone lit up while you were in the shower. I saw a reminder. He froze his hand, stilling on the knot of his robe. Oh, yes. It just said, call C for tomorrow at 11. I was just wondering if it was a party thing I needed to handle. I watched him. It was like watching a bad actor in a play. First, the flicker of pure, unadulterated panic in his eyes. Second, the forced, jovial laugh that came out half a second too late. Third, the dismissive wave of his hand. Oh, that. He chuckled, turning away from me to look in the mirror. That is just Sanchez, a new colleague, from the Seattle office. It is a work thing. You know, confidential. He was lying. His voice was too high. He could not meet my eyes even in the reflection. Sanchez, I repeated, with an C. It is a nickname. He snapped, his good humor vanishing instantly. Why are you interrogating me, Eleonora? It is just work. I am not. I was just asking. Well, do not, he said, his voice cold. I handle my work. You handle the house. He turned, the false smile gone, replaced by the familiar irritation I had lived with for years. Now I'm going to order that food. Let us try and have a nice evening. He stalked out of the room. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles were white. C. It was not a nickname. It was not a colleague. C was a secret, and it was a secret he was willing to lie badly to protect. I felt utterly, completely alone. I was in a house with a man who was not only my husband, but my enemy, a man plotting my downfall with his mother. I needed help. I could not do this by myself. I needed someone who could see through the lies. I picked up my own phone and found the number. I had not called her in months, but I knew she would answer. I pressed the button and listened to it ring. Imani Jordan, attorney at law. Her crisp professional voice answered. Imani, I whispered. It is Ellie. I am in trouble. There was a crackle of static on the line, and then Imani's voice, warm and familiar, cut through the silence. Ellie, are you okay? You sound awful. Tears I had not even realized were forming pricked at the backs of my eyes. The shame was overwhelming. I do not know, Imani. I'm sorry to call you like this. I do not know who else to trust. Ellie, you are my sister, she said, her voice instantly shedding its lawyerly tone and becoming the one I remembered from our days at Spelman. I do not know. I lied. There is just this initial. C. He is lying about it. I can feel it. He is panicked. Imani let out a long breath. Okay. A mysterious C. A suspicious party and a mother-in-law suddenly interested in real estate. Ellie, this is a classic pre-divorce ambush. Divorce? I said the word, and it tasted like ash. You are not to do anything, Imani commanded. Do not confront him. Do not act suspicious. You are the same quiet, trusting Eleonora you have always been. Do you understand? Yes. I have a private investigator I use for my high-asset divorce cases, the best in Atlanta. I'm going to make a call. Let us find out what C really stands for. Imani, I cannot ask you to. You did not ask. She cut me off. I am doing it. Now you go make yourself some tea, lock your bedroom door, and do not talk to Marcus. I will call you back as soon as I have something. The line clicked dead. I did as I was told. I locked my door, the small brass knob, a tiny comfort. I sat in the armchair by the window, watching the Atlanta skyline glitter, feeling like a ghost in my own home. 2 hours passed. 2 hours of listening to Marcus downstairs, loudly taking work calls, the sound of his fake, confident laugh drifting up the stairs. My phone vibrated on the side table, and I nearly screamed. It was Imani. I snatched it up. Ellie, are you sitting down? Yes, what did you find? Did the investigator? I did not even need him, Imani said, and her voice was cold metallic. All the warmth was gone. What do you mean? I'm on my lunch break. I've had to go to Lenox Square to pick up a gift. And I saw him, Ellie. I saw Marcus. My stomach dropped to the floor. No, he was at work. He had meetings. He is at Tiffany's. Imani said, her voice void of emotion. He is in the private salon, the one they use for the big spenders. And he is buying a diamond tennis necklace. My hand flew to my own throat, to the simple gold chain my parents had given me. A tennis necklace. Was he alone? I whispered, though I already knew the answer. No, he was with her. She is young Ellie, early 30s tops, blonde tall, wearing a coat that cost more than my first car. I could not breathe. I got close enough to hear them. Imani continued, her voice relentless. He is fawning all over her. She is laughing, telling him he would better get her the matching earrings. Imani, stop. You need to hear this, Ellie. He said, anything for my girl. After this anniversary, you will have it all. And then he kissed her. The room was spinning. Did you hear her name? Imani paused. When she spoke, the word landed like a bullet. He called her Chloe. C. C, I whispered. C is for Chloe. The phone slipped from my hand. The last 3 a.m. whisper, the fake smiles, the browser history, the $45,000. It all clicked into place. It was not just about the condo. It was about her. He was taking my home, my money, and my 25 years of life, to give it to a woman half my age. The shock faded and something new, something hard and cold began to form in my chest. It was rage. Chloe. The name was a splinter in my mind. It was the name of the woman who was trying on diamond necklaces while I was balancing our checkbook. It was the name of the woman my husband was planning to give my life to. I spent the rest of the day in a cold, quiet fury. I answered Imani's texts. I told her I was okay, that I was processing. I told her I needed a plan. We have a plan, she wrote back. You sit tight. I will handle the legal. You just be a ghost. Do not let him see you are onto him. Be a ghost. I could do that. I had been a ghost in my own home for years. When Marcus came home that evening, the false cheer was gone. The flowers from the day before were already wilting on the console table. He had moved on to the next phase of his attack, the psychological one. He found me in the study reading. He has not knocked. He just stood in the doorway swirling the ice in a glass of bourbon. Eleonora, we need to talk. I put my book down, my heart rate steady. What about Marcus? He sighed, a long theatrical sound of a man burdened by the world. I was at a function today. My colleague's wife, she is. She has got vitality. She is 55, but she looks incredible. She keeps herself up. He took a sip of his drink, his eyes scanning me with open disdain. And then I come home. To you. I said nothing. I just met his gaze. I was looking at our old honeymoon photos. He continued, You used to be so vibrant, Ellie. You had a spark. What happened to you? He walked into the room prowling. You have let yourself go. I mean, just look at you. Your hair, your clothes. It is like you have given up. He wanted a fight. He wanted tears. He wanted me to get defensive so he could call me hysterical or difficult. I gave him nothing. Turning 60 is not the end of the world. He said, his voice laced with contempt, but you are not even trying. You should see a dermatologist, join a gym, buy a new wardrobe. My wife, the wife of a man in my position, should reflect his success. He was comparing me to Chloe. He was building his case brick by painful brick for the public. He was painting me as the withered, difficult wife he was forced to leave. I will take that under advisement. I said, my voice perfectly neutral. His eyes narrowed. My calm was frustrating him. Fine, whatever. I am just telling you at the party I want you to at least try to look the part. He turned and left the clink of his ice cubes echoing in the hall. I let out the breath I was holding. The insult stung, but the strategy was so transparent it was almost pathetic. He was a clumsy butcher, not a surgeon. That night, sleep was impossible. I was in the guest room, the door locked. The silence of the condo was heavy, oppressive. Around 2 a.m. I heard it. His voice. He was in his study just down the hall, and this time he was not whispering. He was confident. He must have had his headphones in, or maybe he was on speaker. I slipped out of bed, my bare feet silent on the thick carpet. I crept to the door and pressed my ear against the wood. It was Matilda. Her voice was tinny, coming from the phone speaker. Are you absolutely sure about this, son? Matilda was saying. In front of everyone, it seems messy. It is the only way, Mama. Marcus's voice replied, firm and cold. Dawson confirmed it. He calls it the shock and awe tactic. My blood froze. Dawson, the lawyer. I will make my speech. Marcus continued, and I could hear him pacing. I will talk about our 25 years. I will be gracious, of course, but I will tell them the truth, that the love is gone, that she has been difficult for years, that she has let the marriage die. He was rehearsing the speech he had been practicing on me earlier. I will announce the divorce right there. She will be so humiliated, so completely broken in front of all her friends, her colleagues, our whole life. He paused and I heard him take a drink. She will not have the strength to fight Mama. She will be desperate to get out of that room. And that is when Dawson makes his move. Dawson, Matilda asked. He will be at the party, in the back. He will have the papers with him, the waiver for the condo. He will pull her aside, just to sign Eleonora to make this all go away. He says she will sign it. She will sign anything, just to make the humiliation stop. My hand flew to my mouth to stifle a gasp. This was their plan. Not just a divorce, not just a theft, an ambush. A public execution of my spirit, designed to shatter my will. So I would just give up. I backed away from the door, my body shaking. They thought I was so weak. They thought 25 years of quiet accommodation meant I had no spine. I stood in the darkness of the hallway, a terrible cold calm settling over me. They had misjudged. They had mistaken my patience for frailty. We will see, I whispered to the shadows. We will just see who breaks. I locked the guest room door and sat in the armchair, watching the black sky over Atlanta fade to a bruised pre-dawn purple. Sleep was a distant country. My mind was a steel trap replaying Marcus's voice. Shock and awe. So humiliated. She will sign anything. The woman he was describing, that broken, hysterical creature, was not the woman I intended to be. The grief was gone. It had burned away in the 2 a.m. darkness, leaving behind something cold, hard, and perfectly clear. I was no longer a wife. I was an opponent in a game I had not chosen, but one I intended to win. He was coming with a lawyer, and a public humiliation. I would come with my own weapons. At 6 a.m., I heard the shower start in the master bedroom. Marcus was beginning his day preparing for his 11 a.m. call with C. I went to my home office. It was my sanctuary, the one room Marcus never entered, filled with my books and my files. I closed the door and turned on the green banker's lamp on my desk. I needed two things: proof of ownership for the condo and my own money. Imani was my friend, but a high-asset divorce battle against a man using our joint savings would bleed me dry. I had my own salary, but Marcus had access to our entire life's nest egg. I started with the filing cabinet. It was old metal and locked. I still had the key on my personal keyring. Marcus had forgotten it existed. I pulled open the drawer labeled House, and there it was in a crisp blue folder. Condominium title, 1100 Peachtree Saint. I pulled it out, but as I did, another file caught my eye. It was a thick manila folder labeled Personal E. Hayes. I set the condo deed on my desk and opened the personal file. It was full of old college transcripts, my mother's letters, and a thick cream-colored envelope I did not recognize. It was addressed only to me, Mrs. Eleonora Hayes. The postmark was German, from Munich. It was dated 6 months ago. I stared at it, a faint memory surfacing. It had arrived on a Saturday. Marcus had tossed it on my desk with the junk mail, and in the quiet misery of my life, I had simply forgotten it. My hands were steady as I slid a letter opener under the wax seal. The letterhead was heavy embossed. Gruber Weiss and Schmidt Anwaltskanzlei, a law firm. I unfolded the pages. They were covered in dense legal German, but there was a cover letter in English for Frau Hayes. Dear Mrs. Hayes, we are contacting you as the executor of the estate of your aunt, Dr. Beatrice Alston. Aunt Beatrice, my father's older sister, a brilliant reclusive academic who had a falling out with my father in the 1970s and moved to Munich. I had met her exactly once when I was 5. She smelled like old books and peppermint. I scanned the page, my heart beginning to thud, slow and heavy. Dr. Alston passed away 8 months ago, as her sole living relative and named beneficiary. We have been trying to reach you to administer the execution of her last will and testament. I read the next paragraph and read it again. My vision tunneled. The words seemed to lift off the page. The estate includes a primary residence, a fully owned flat in Munich Bogenhausen, a secondary investment property in Miami Beach, Florida, and a significant liquid portfolio held at Deutsche Bank. A significant portfolio, an apartment in Munich, a condo in Miami. I sank into my desk chair, the letters blurring. I did not know what significant meant. It could be $10,000. It could be $1 million. But it was mine. Aunt Beatrice, a woman I barely knew, had just reached across time and an ocean to hand me a sword. Marcus was planning to fight me for one condo. I might have just inherited 2. I carefully folded the letter and placed it along with the condo deed into my personal briefcase. The first step was to verify. The second was to secure. I looked at the clock, 7:15 a.m. Marcus would be leaving soon. I needed to move fast. I had to get to the bank, to my own safe deposit box, the one Marcus did not know I had. The war had started, and I had just found my armory. I waited, my briefcase clutched in my lap, until I heard Marcus leave the master bedroom. He strode into the kitchen, smelling of cologne and ambition, his tie perfectly knotted. "There you are," he said, not as a greeting but as a statement of fact. He poured his coffee into a thermal mug, his movements crisp and decisive. "I have fantastic news, Ellie." "Oh." I kept my voice flat, sipping my own tea. "The party, it is booked." He smiled a wide, gleaming, predatory smile. "I have secured the grand ballroom at the St. Regis in Buckhead." I allowed my eyes to widen. The St. Regis Marcus, that is. That is for billionaires and ambassadors. We cannot possibly afford that. Nonsense, he scoffed. It is our 25th. Only the best. I have invited 100 people. My boss, the board members, our entire circle. This is a statement, Eleonora. It shows we are a power couple. He was building the audience. 100 witnesses for his shock and awe campaign. 100 people! I repeated, my mind racing. Marcus, the cost. We are supposed to be saving. Retirement is only a few years away. This was the Eleonora he knew. The practical, frugal accountant. The boring woman who balanced the checkbooks and worried about the future. He let out an exasperated sigh, the one he always used when I was being difficult. Eleonora, please, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Do not worry your pretty little head about the money. It is handled. The deposit is paid. Everything is taken care of. He was so arrogant, so dismissive. He truly believed I was a simple-minded fool. Now, he said, grabbing his briefcase, I have to run. Big day. And remember, you need to find something spectacular to wear. Look the part, Ellie, please. The door clicked shut. It is handled. The deposit is paid. I went straight to my office, my hands moving with practiced speed. I sat at my desk and logged into our joint savings account, the one I had painstakingly funded from my own salary for 2 decades. The balance made me gasp. It was almost $50,000 lower than it had been on Monday. I scrolled down, and there it was. A wire transfer dated 3 days ago. Payee St. Regis Atlanta, event services, amount $45,000. I stared at the red negative number, $45,000. He had not just booked a party. He had emptied our savings. He had taken our life's nest egg, our security, my money, to pay for the stage of my public humiliation. This was a level of cruelty I could not have imagined. He was not just leaving me. He was planning to leave me destitute, broken and in debt, all while his mistress wore new diamonds. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute, it was almost clarifying. The last wisp of sentiment, the last shadow of the man I married evaporated. I picked up the phone. My fingers did not shake. My first call was to Imani. He paid $45,000 for the party, Imani, from our joint savings. Imani's response was a string of curses that would have made a sailor blush. That is it, Ellie. This is no longer a divorce. It is a declaration of war. That is financial abuse. We have got him. Good. I said, my voice cold. Now I need a favor. I need you to find me the best real estate attorney in Atlanta. Not a divorce lawyer, a property lawyer, today. Done. Where are you going? I have a phone call to make, I said, looking at the German letterhead. To Munich. I did not call Munich first. The German inheritance was my armor, but the condo was my home. It was the ground beneath my feet, and it was the target of Marcus's immediate attack. Imani had given me the name of a shark, a high-powered female attorney in Buckhead. But I did not go to her. Not yet. Instead, I drove to a quiet tree-lined street in Midtown to an old brick building. The name on the directory was Faded Gold Leaf Gideon and Associates. Mr. Gideon had been my father's real estate lawyer for 30 years. He was the one who handled the purchase of the condo back in 1999, just before Marcus and I were married. He was in his 80s now, semi-retired. He was a man of paper, not pixels. I walked into the office, and the smell of old books and floor wax washed over me. Eleonora Alston, he said, peering at me over his spectacles. He still called me by my maiden name. My goodness, it has been, what, a decade. It has, Mr. Gideon. You look well. The good Lord is kind, he smiled. What brings you here? Trouble with that husband of yours. I was taken aback. What, no? Why would you say that? He chuckled a dry rustling sound. I'm 82, child. I have seen it all. You are here for a reason. Sit. I sat my briefcase in my lap. I'm updating my estate plan, my will. I just wanted to get a copy of the original paperwork for the condo, for my files. Prudent? He nodded. He shuffled over to a wall of ceiling-high filing cabinets. Let us see. Hayes Eleanora Alston, 1100 Peachtree. His fingers thin and papery walked along the tabs. He pulled a folder so thick it bulged at the seams. Here we are, 1999. My. That was a lovely gift. My heart gave a single hard thump. I kept my voice perfectly even. A gift, Mr. Gideon? Of course, he said, sitting back at his desk and opening the folder. Dust motes danced in the shaft of light from the window. Your father, bless his soul, was a very generous man. He pulled out a document, a faint yellow copy. I remember it like yesterday. He sat right where you are. My Ellie is getting married, he said. I want her to have a roof over her head that is hers no matter what. My breath caught in my throat. I had never known this. Mr. Gideon tapped the paper. This is the cashier's check for the down payment from his trust. And this is the original deed of gift, filed with Fulton County on October 12th, 1999. He turned the document for me to see. The legal language was dense, but the grantee name was unmistakable. Eleanora Alston Hayes. My name, and my name alone. Marcus and I whispered, we signed papers together. Indeed you did, Mr. Gideon said, pulling another, thinner document. This is the quitclaim deed adding Mr. Marcus Thorne to the title. Filed on, let us see, April 20th, 2000. He looked at me over his glasses. 6 months after your wedding, almost 5 months after the original deed was filed in your name. The room was silent. I could hear the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Mr. Gideon, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Under Georgia law, what does this mean? He smiled a slow, knowing smile. He understood exactly why I was here. Georgia is an equitable distribution state, Eleanora, but it also respects separate property. This, he tapped the first deed, is a premarital asset, a gift specifically to you from your father. The condo, he continued, is your separate property. It is not and has never been marital property. But his name is on the title? A formality. It gives him right of survivorship, but no equity. He could only claim a share if he could prove with receipts that his personal separate funds were used for significant capital improvements. Not maintenance, not taxes, improvements. I thought of the past 25 years. I had paid for the new kitchen in 2010 from my bonus. I had paid for the new hardwoods in 2017. Marcus had paid for his car, his suits, and his golf club membership. He has no claim, I said. It was not a question. None at all, Mr. Gideon confirmed. I let out a breath I felt I had been holding for 25 years. Marcus's entire plan, the 3 a.m. call, Matilda's visit, the shock and awe humiliation, was built on a foundation of sand. He was planning to steal a house he had never ever owned. Mr. Gideon, I said, my voice strong now, I need certified copies of the original deed of gift, the check from my father's trust, and the quitclaim deed. He nodded, his eyes kind. I thought you might. I walked out of that dusty office an hour later, the certified papers heavy in my briefcase. They felt like a shield, like a set of keys. I had my first weapon. Now it was time to call Munich. I walked out of Mr. Gideon's office into the bright Atlanta sunshine, the certified deed in my briefcase, like a plate of armor. I was strong. I was defended. I did not go home. I did not go to Amani's office. I drove straight to Buckhead, to a sleek glass tower on Peachtree Road. The German consulate. The air inside was cool and silent, smelling of clean glass and bureaucracy. It was a world away from Mr. Gideon's dusty, paper-filled office. Here everything was steel and quiet efficiency. I took a number and sat my briefcase on my lap. I was the only person in the waiting room. "Frau Hayes?" a voice called. A professional woman, her hair in a severe bun, beckoned me from behind a thick glass window. I walked up, my heels clicking on the marble floor. "Good morning," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I need help. I received this letter some time ago from a law firm in Munich." I slid the heavy cream envelope under the partition. I am ashamed to say I never followed up. I need to verify if it is authentic. The officer, her name tag, read. Frau Kessler looked at me with professional disinterest. She slid open the envelope and read the letter, her expression unchanging. She picked up her phone and dialed a long string of numbers. A moment later, she was speaking rapid, fluent German. I heard the words Gruber, Weiss, and Schmidt, and Dr. Beatrice Alston. I waited, my hands clasped in front of me, watching my own nervous reflection in the security glass. She spoke for several minutes, her voice a low, efficient monotone. She jotted down a few notes on a pad. Finally, she hung up. She looked at me, her gaze softening just a fraction. "Yes, Frau Hayes. This is very much authentic. The law firm of Gruber, Weiss, and Schmidt has been most anxious to reach you. It seems they have been sending letters to your condo for months." Letters Marcus had probably seen and hidden. "Your aunt, Dr. Beatrice Alston," Frau Kessler continued, "was a very prudent woman and very organized." She turned to her computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "They have faxed me the official summary of the estate, as you are the sole beneficiary. I can translate the key points for you now." "Please," I whispered. She printed a single sheet of paper and swiveled it to face me. "First," she said, her finger tapping the page, "there is the liquid portfolio held at Deutsche Bank in Munich. The current balance is 1.1 million euros. She did a quick calculation. At today's exchange rate, that is approximately 1.2 million US dollars. I gripped the edge of the counter. My knees felt weak. 1.2 million. Second, she continued, oblivious to my shock, there is the primary residence, a 3-bedroom flat in Munich Bogenhausen, fully paid. The estimated value is 900,000 euros. And third, there is an investment property Dr. Alston held in the United States, a condominium in Miami Beach, Florida, also fully paid. My mind was reeling. Munich, Miami, cash. "Frau Kessler," I interrupted, my voice hoarse. What is the total value?" She looked at her calculations. "With the properties and the liquid assets, the total value of your inheritance is estimated to be just over 3 million US dollars. $3 million. I was not just not broke. I was not just okay. I was a wealthy woman. I was wealthier than Marcus had ever been. His entire plan, his $45,000 party, his scheme to steal my Atlanta condo. It was all so pathetic, so small. He was a petty thief trying to pick the pocket of a queen. "Frau Hayes?" Frau Kessler's voice pulled me back. "Are you all right?" "Yes," I said, straightening my back. I felt a surge of power, cold and clear. "Yes, I am perfectly fine." "Good." She slid a set of documents through the slot. "You simply need to sign these forms to officially accept the inheritance and begin the transfer of funds and titles. We will handle the rest with the German firm." I picked up the heavy black pen. My hand did not shake. I signed my name, Eleonora Alston Hayes, with a firm, clear stroke. I was no longer just an accountant. I was no longer Marcus Thorne's boring wife. I was an heiress. I was the owner of 3 homes and a millionaire. And the game had just completely irrevocably changed. I walked out of the consulate into the bright Buckhead afternoon, the certified deed, the $3 million inheritance summary. My briefcase was no longer a burden. It was an arsenal. I felt a strange cold calm settle over me. I was no longer a wife reacting to betrayal. I was a general surveying a battlefield, and I needed to see the battlefield. I did not go home. I drove the few blocks to the St. Regis, the hotel Marcus had chosen, the one he had spent $45,000 of our money on. The lobby was obscene in its opulence. Marble floors gleamed like mirrors. A chandelier the size of a car dripped crystals from the frescoed ceiling. The air was hushed, smelling of old money and hothouse flowers. This was the world Marcus was so desperate to impress. This was the audience he had chosen for my public execution. I walked through the lobby as if I owned the place. In a way, I supposed I could. I headed toward the hotel bar, a dark wood-paneled room, intending to ask the concierge about the ballroom. And then I saw her. She was sitting at the bar alone, a martini glass in her hand. She was exactly as Imani had described. Tall, blonde, early 30s. She was wearing a red trench coat, so bright it was screaming for attention. She was talking loudly into her phone, one manicured hand twirling a lock of platinum hair. I slid into a velvet armchair just a few feet away, hidden by a large potted palm. I ordered a sparkling water from a passing waiter. The woman's voice was high and sharp, cutting through the bar's quiet atmosphere. "I am at the hotel now, baby," she trilled. "I just peeked into the ballroom. It is divine. I cannot wait to be hosting my own parties here." There was a pause. She took a long theatrical sip of her martini. I know. I have to be patient. It is just this one last week, this stupid party." Another pause. She let out a high, cruel laugh that made my skin crawl. "I cannot wait until that old hag is finally out, and I am the new Mrs. Thorne. You have no idea how tired I am of hiding." My hands gripped the arms of the chair, my knuckles white. Old hag. That was me. "Just make sure she signs the papers at the party." "Marcus," she said, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial purr. "Like you promised. You said it would be shock and awe. You said she would be too broken to even think." Her voice was full of a greedy, giddy anticipation. "Yes, baby. I will be there. Your new assistant. It is perfect. I will be watching from the back when her whole world falls apart." She was savoring my future humiliation. She was tasting it like the olive in her drink. I had heard enough. I stood up. My sparkling water was untouched. I adjusted the strap of my briefcase on my shoulder and walked directly toward the bar. I stopped right next to her. My shadow fell across her, blocking her light. She broke off her phone call, annoyance flashing across her face. "Excuse me?" she snapped, looking up at me. I looked into her eyes. I had expected them to be something. Vapid, maybe. Or passionate. They were neither. They were cold. As cold and hard as the diamonds Marcus had bought her. They were the eyes of a calculator, a predator. She looked me up and down. One quick, dismissive glance. My sensible shoes, my conservative dress, my graying hair. In her eyes, I was no one. I was a non-entity. I was the old hag, the obstacle. She scoffed a tiny, impatient sound and turned back to her phone, physically dismissing me. "Sorry, baby," she cooed into the phone. "Just some old lady in my way." I stood there for a beat. I did not say a word. I did not have to. I just smiled. A small, faint smile that she did not see. "See you at the party, Chloe," I thought. I turned and walked out of the bar. My head held high, my steps even and measured. She had just confirmed every piece of the puzzle. She had handed me the final critical piece of intelligence. They were not just planning to hurt me. They were planning to break me. And they were going to enjoy it. I walked out of the St. Regis, the words "old hag" echoing in the cool afternoon air. I got into my car, but I did not go home. My counteroffensive had 3 phases: the money, the career, and the law. My first stop was my personal bank, a small, discreet credit union that Marcus did not even know existed. I had kept an account there since college, a vestige of my single life. I was shown into the office of the branch manager, a kind woman named Mrs. Davis. "Eleonora?" She smiled. "It has been a while. How can we help you?" "I need to open a new account, Mrs. Davis." I said, my voice all business. "A private high-yield savings account, linked only to my social security number. No joint owners." She nodded, her expression professional. "Of course. Right this way." For the next hour, we executed the first part of my plan. I signed the forms, my hand steady. Then I pulled out the documents from the German consulate. "I'm initiating an international wire transfer, an inheritance, from Deutsche Bank in Munich to this new account." Mrs. Davis's eyes widened slightly as she saw the numbers on the summary page, but she said nothing. She just nodded. "We can begin that immediately. The funds should clear within 3 to 5 business days." Phase 1. A was complete. The $1.2 million was in motion. Finally, I took out my phone and logged into the joint savings account, the one Marcus had plundered. The remaining balance was $15,340. "I need to make one more transfer," I said, "from my joint account at Truist." I showed her the balance. "I need to transfer exactly half of that, $7,670, into my new private account." "And the other half?" she asked. "It can stay there," I said. Marcus had stolen $45,000 in joint funds. He had stolen $22,500 of his money and $22,500 of my money. I was not a thief. I was an accountant. I was just balancing the books. I left Marcus with his half of what was left and his $22,500 debt to me. It was a clean, legal, and defensible move. My second stop was my office. I had been the controller at this accounting firm for 22 years. My boss, Mr. Henderson, was an old-school gentleman who valued loyalty and precision above all else. I knocked on his heavy oak door. "Mr. Henderson, do you have a moment?" "For you, Eleonora, always," he said, motioning me in. I sat in the chair opposite his large, uncluttered desk. "Sir?" I began, my voice firm and professional. "I am here to offer you a professional courtesy." He leaned forward, concerned. "I am in the process of initiating a difficult personal separation. My 25th anniversary party is this weekend, and I have reason to believe my husband intends to make a public scene." Mr. Henderson's face darkened. He was a man who detested scenes. "It may become messy," I continued, "and it will likely be the talk of our social circle on Monday. I wanted you to hear it from me first." I met his gaze directly. "I want to assure you this will not in any way affect my work. The quarterly reports are, as you know, already on your desk for review." He was silent for a moment, steepling his fingers. "Eleonora," he said finally, his voice deep and kind, "you have been the bedrock of this firm for 2 decades. Your work is impeccable. Your personal life is your own." He stood up, a sign of respect. "Whatever you need, you have it. Time off, a schedule change, anything. Your job here is ironclad. Do not give it a second thought." "Thank you, sir," I said, the relief washing over me. Marcus's plan to ruin me would not touch my career. I had just firewalled my professional life from his domestic terrorism. My final stop was Imani's office. I walked in at 4:30 p.m. Her secretary showed me right in. Imani was on the phone pacing. She saw my face and immediately said, I will call you back, and hung up. Ellie, what is it? What happened? I did not say a word. I just walked to her large mahogany conference table. I opened my briefcase. I placed down the first folder. The certified deed of gift for the Atlanta condo, a premarital asset, in my name only. Imani's eyes went wide. She opened it, read the title, and a slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. You are kidding me. Oh, Ellie, this is a silver bullet. Wait, I said. I placed the second folder on the table. The authenticated summary of inheritance from my Aunt Beatrice. Total value $3 million. The wire transfer for the $1.2 million in cash is already in progress. Imani stared at the paper. She looked from the inheritance summary to the condo deed and then back to me. She was silent for a long, long time. Then she tipped her head back and let out a single sharp laugh of pure predatory joy. Eleanora Hayes, she said, you are a killer, a stone-cold killer. He is a dead man walking. Imani breathed, her lawyer brain spinning. He is planning this whole shock and awe party, spending $45,000. He does not have to steal a house. He does not own from a woman who is $3 million richer than he is. Yes, I said. That is the situation. We are done, she said, sitting down giddy with the legal implications. The divorce is done. We do not even have to fight. We just file. No, I said. Imani looked at me. No. What do you mean, no? He built a stage. I said, my voice as cold as the marble in the St. Regis lobby. He paid $45,000 for a stage, 100 guests, and a microphone. He wants a public performance. I leaned forward. He's going to get one. Imani's smile faded, replaced by a look of profound respect. So that is the plan. You let him do it. You let him build his own gallows in front of everyone. In front of everyone, I confirmed. I will be there, Imani said, grabbing her phone. No, you will not, I said. You will be at home, with your phone on. I do not want him to see a single lawyer in that room. I want him to think he is the only one with a plan. I stood up and gathered my papers. This is not a legal battle, Imani. Not yet. This is a public execution, and I am the executioner. I walked out of her office. All my pieces were in place. The money was secure. The job was secure. The law was on my side. I drove home. For the first time, I was not a victim. I was an army of one. It was the eve of the battle. The night before our 25th anniversary. The house was still, but it was an electric humming silence, like the air before a lightning strike. Marcus was in his study. The door closed. I was in the guest room. My new base of operations, the door locked. I had spent the evening in perfect calm. I had had a light dinner, a cup of chamomile tea, and I had read a chapter of a novel. I was not a woman preparing for a party. I was a soldier polishing her weapons. Around 10 p.m., the house was so quiet, I could hear the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Then a new sound. Marcus's voice, low and measured from behind his study door. He was rehearsing. I slipped out of my robe, my bare feet silent on the runner. I crept down the hall and stood by his door, my ear pressed to the cool painted wood. His voice was clear. He was practicing his performance. Friends, thank you for coming. He began, his voice full of a fake sonorous gravity. 25 years, a quarter of a century. It is a long time to share a life. He paused and I could hear the rustle of a page. He had it scripted. But life moves on. People, they change. Or sometimes they do not. And honesty, he said, his voice dropping, honesty must come first. I cannot stand here in front of all of you and live a lie. He was enjoying this. He was savoring the drama. My marriage, our marriage, has not been a partnership for a very long time. It has become a A burden. A burden. The word so cold and clinical hung in the dark hallway. I have been carrying this alone, and I have made the difficult but necessary decision to choose a new path, to choose honesty, to choose life. I heard him take a sip of something, probably his expensive bourbon. I know this is a shock, but I thank Eleonora for the years we had. I truly wish her well. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. He was painting himself as the tragic hero, the brave truth-teller, all while planning a grand theft. I had heard enough. I backed away just as silent as I had come. I returned to my room and locked the door. I did not cry. I did not rage. The man rehearsing in that room was a stranger to me, a pathetic posturing fool. My heart was cold and still. Instead, I opened my closet. I prepared my armor. I did not choose a new dress. I did not choose something flashy to compete with Chloe. I chose my best, a classic regal blue velvet dress. It was timeless, elegant, and fit me perfectly. It was the dress of a woman who knew her own worth, not one who was seeking it. I laid it out on the bed. I opened my jewelry box. I took out my mother's pearls. Simple, heavy, and real, not the gaudy diamonds he had bought his mistress with our money. I set the pearls beside the dress. Finally, I opened my black leather purse. I checked its contents one last time. The first folder, the certified deed of gift for the Atlanta condo, my father's gift, my home. The second folder, the authenticated inheritance summary, Aunt Beatrice's gift, my future. I placed them neatly side by side. My rebuttal, my script. I zipped the purse. The snick of the metal zipper closing was the only sound in the room. It felt final. A light knock came at the door. Ellie, you in there? It was Marcus. I took a deep breath. I smoothed my robe. I unlocked the door and opened it, standing in the frame. He was in his silk robe, his hair damp from a shower. He looked anxious, but there was a bright, feverish glitter in his eyes, the excitement of the predator just before the kill. There you are. He smiled, his big false smile. Just wanted to say good night. Good night, Marcus. Ready for our big day tomorrow, Ellie? He asked, his voice dripping with false intimacy. It is going to be special, a real milestone. I looked at him. I did not smile. I did not look away. I let him see the calm in my eyes. I am Marcus. I said, my voice even and clear. It is going to be a day nobody will ever forget. His smile faltered, just for a second. This was not the response he expected. He was looking for nerves or tears or the fluttery, clueless excitement of the woman he thought I was. My serenity was not in his script. He brushed it off, his arrogance winning out. He mistook my calm for ignorance. Good, he said, stepping back. That is the spirit. Get your rest. You will need it. He turned and walked back to the master bedroom, back to the bed we no longer shared. I closed my door. I locked the deadbolt. I went to the window and looked out at the lights of Atlanta. Yes, I whispered to the city, you will need it. The grand ballroom at the St. Regis was breathtaking. It was exactly as obscene as I had imagined. Chandeliers dripped from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. A string quartet played softly in the corner. 100 guests, the cream of black Atlanta, mingled their laughter tinkling with the sound of champagne glasses. We stood at the entrance, a receiving line of 2. Marcus was in his element, his hand at the small of my back, a proprietary gesture. He was a successful man, the loving husband, the host. Eleonora, you look radiant. A friend gushed. 25 years, it is an inspiration. I smiled, my mother's pearls cool against my skin. Thank you, Cynthia. It is truly unbelievable. Marcus squeezed my back. Only the best for my wife. He said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. I was the picture of grace. My blue velvet dress was a quiet statement of dignity among the sequined, desperate gowns. I smiled. I accepted the congratulations. I played the part of the happy, honored wife. But my eyes were scanning the room. I was not a guest. I was a general. I spotted the first player, in the corner by the bar, holding a champagne flute like a weapon. Chloe. She was in a skin-tight fire engine red dress that left nothing to the imagination. She was laughing too loudly with one of Marcus's junior colleagues who was clearly mesmerized. Marcus had introduced her as his newest marketing assistant. Her eyes met mine across the room. She gave me a tiny, insolent smirk, the old hag in her borrowed finery. I spotted the second player, near the back wall by the exit, half hidden by a marble pillar. Mr. Dawson, the lawyer. He was in a somber gray suit, looking bored, checking his phone. A black briefcase sat at his feet, the executioner waiting patiently for the signal. And then I saw the third player, the queen bee, Matilda. She was at the head table holding court, dressed in a gaudy, shimmering gold lame dress. She was beaming, soaking in the compliments on her wonderful son and his beautiful party. She caught my eye and gave me a curt nod, her smile thin and tight. She was giddy with anticipation. The string quartet finished. A man in a tuxedo walked to the small stage. And now, his voice boomed over the speakers. A few words from our host, the man of the hour, Mr. Marcus Thorne. The room erupted in applause. Marcus gave my hand a squeeze. "Wish me luck," he whispered as if he were nervous. He walked to the stage, pulling his scripted notes from his jacket pocket. A single brilliant white spotlight hit him. The ballroom fell silent. "Friends, family, thank you." He began, his voice thick with emotion. He was a better actor than I had realized. 25 years, a quarter of a century. Guests smiled, dabbing at their eyes. My boss, Mr. Henderson, sitting at a table near the front, nodded in approval. "I have been thinking a lot about those years," Marcus continued, "about what it means, about the promises we make." His tone began to shift. The warmth bled out of it, replaced by that somber, righteous gravity I had heard through the door. "But I have also been thinking about honesty, about the truth." The smiles in the room faltered. People exchanged confused glances. The atmosphere changed, the air growing heavy and cold. Mr. Henderson frowned, sensing something was wrong. "For a long time," Marcus said, his voice dropping, "I have not been honest. We have not been honest." He looked directly at me. "This marriage, this beautiful facade, has not been a partnership for a very, very long time." A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. It was so quiet I could hear the clink of an ice cube. "It has become," he said, his voice ringing with self-pity, "a burden." "What is he doing?" Cynthia whispered from a nearby table. Marcus did not wait. He launched the final attack. "For years I have tried, but I cannot live a lie. I cannot be married to a woman who let herself go, a woman who has for so long been a weight on my success." The room was in stunned, horrified silence. This was not a toast. It was a vivisection. Then Marcus pointed. He pointed at me. The spotlight operator, confused, followed his gesture. The brilliant white light swung off Marcus and landed directly on me. I was pinned a specimen under a microscope, sitting alone at the head of the ballroom. "Our marriage is over," Marcus declared, his voice a hammer blow in the silence. "I am filing for divorce." He let that hang in the air. The shock, then the awe. "And she needs to be out of the condo by tomorrow." The room was frozen. No one moved, no one breathed. I saw Matilda's triumphant smile. I saw Chloe's victorious smirk. I saw Mr. Dawson, the lawyer, straighten his tie, pick up his briefcase, and begin to take his first step toward my table. Marcus stood on the stage, his face a mask of cold victory. He was looking at me, waiting. He was waiting for the old hag to shatter. He was waiting for the tears, the screams, the public pathetic breakdown. He had built his gallows. He had gathered his audience. And he had just pulled the lever. All 100 pairs of eyes were on me, trapped in that terrible, unforgiving light. The false ending was complete. I was cornered. I was humiliated. I was in his eyes utterly and completely defeated. I sat there bathed in the harsh white light. The silence in the ballroom was absolute, a heavy, suffocating blanket. 100 pairs of eyes were on me, waiting for the collapse. I saw Mr. Dawson, the lawyer, take his first deliberate step toward my table. I saw Chloe's triumphant, vicious smirk. I saw Marcus on his stage, a conqueror, waiting to watch his victim bleed. I did not cry. I did not scream. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my ice water. The clink of the glass against my teeth was the only sound in the room. Then I calmly placed my napkin on the table. I picked up my black leather purse and set it in front of me with a soft, definitive thud. I stood up. My posture was perfect. My mother's pearls were a cool, steady weight on my chest. I walked the 10 feet to the second lectern, the one that had been set up for my own smaller speech. The spotlight operator, sensing the shift in drama, moved the light with me. I was no longer a target. I was the co-star. I stepped up to the microphone, adjusting it to my height. I tapped it once. The thump, thump echoed through the silent ballroom. "Thank you, Marcus," I said. My voice was clear. It was calm. It was amplified. It did not shake. That was quite the performance. A collective gasp went through the room. Marcus, frozen on his own stage, looked utterly bewildered. This was not in his script. "You are right about one thing." I continued, my voice gaining strength. "Honesty is important, and I too have a few truths to share. And unlike you, I have brought my documents." From my purse, I pulled the first folder, the crisp manila folder from Mr. Gideon's office. "My husband, as he just announced, is divorcing me. He plans to move in his mistress." I turned my arm, extending, and I pointed. My finger was a rifle, and I aimed it directly at Chloe. Miss Chloe Vance, his new marketing assistant, in the red dress right there by the bar. The spotlight, eager for the drama, swung from me to her. She was caught, her face a mask of horror, her champagne flute frozen halfway to her mouth. The entire room turned to stare. "And he hired a lawyer." I went on, my voice relentless. I turned and pointed to the man who had frozen mid-stride in the aisle. Mr. Dawson right there, who was holding a briefcase full of papers. Papers he intended to force me to sign to waive my rights to my home. The light jumped to Dawson. He looked like a cornered rat, his face pale and sweating. He took a step back, but he was trapped by the wall of angry, staring guests. "There is just one small, tiny problem with your plan, Marcus." I turned back to my husband. He was clutching his microphone stand, his knuckles white. I held up the certified document. "You cannot steal a house you have never owned." I let the words hang in the air. "This," I said, my voice ringing with the clarity of cold, hard law, "is the original premarital deed of gift for our condo. It was a gift from my father. Mr. Gideon sends his regards. It was filed in my name, Eleanora Alston, months before I ever married you." I held it high. "It is and has always been my separate non-marital property. He has no claim." The room erupted. It was not applause. It was a roar of shock. That is a lie." Marcus stammered into his microphone, his voice cracking. We signed a quitclaim deed to add you to the title, darling." I called back as if helping him remember. "But you never invested a penny. It is my house. You have 60 seconds to dispute it, or I will continue." He was silent, his mouth open, pale as a sheet. "Good. Now," I said, "let us talk about the burden. Let us talk about money." My voice was ice. Specifically, let us talk about the $45,000 you withdrew from our joint savings account. Money, I earned money, I saved to pay for this. This very expensive, very public execution. The murmurs in the crowd turned to outrage. He what? Someone yelled. But do not worry, darling. I said, my voice softening with a terrible mock pity. I know you are worried about my finances. I know you would hate to see your burden on the street. I reached back into my purse. I pulled out the second folder, the one from the German consulate. This is a summary of an inheritance I just received from my dear Aunt Beatrice. I unfolded the paper. Let us see. A fully paid condo in Munich, a luxury oceanfront condo in Miami Beach. I paused, looking up, letting them wait for it. And a cash portfolio of approximately $1.2 million. I smiled a wide, bright, beautiful smile. Total value $3 million. The ballroom exploded. The silence was shattered by a wall of sound. People were on their feet yelling. Matilda was on her feet, her gold dress shaking her face, a mask of purple rage. She is a liar, a witch. Tell them, Marcus. Chloe was screaming, a high-pitched, hysterical shriek. What did she say, Marcus? You told me she was broke. You promised me? Marcus himself had stumbled back, clutching his chest. He was hyperventilating into the microphone. Ellie, wait. We can talk. Please. But I was not looking at him. I was not looking at his screaming mother or his hysterical mistress. I turned my back to their chaos, and I looked directly at my boss. Mr. Henderson was standing by his table, his face a mask of thunderous rage, directed entirely at Marcus. I raised my voice, cutting through the din. Mr. Henderson. The room quieted slightly, sensing the final blow. I believe my husband, I said, just publicly announced his affair with his new assistant, Miss Vance. I met his eyes. I assume this will be an HR matter on Monday. Mr. Henderson's face was a mask of thunder. He looked from me, standing calm at the lectern, to Marcus, who was babbling, holding his hand out. Mr. Henderson, sir, this is a misunderstanding. She is twisting. Mr. Thorne. My boss's voice cut through the ballroom, sharp and cold as a razor. Do not bother coming in on Monday or ever. He pointed a finger at Marcus. You are a disgrace to my firm and this community. You are fired. The word fired echoed like a gunshot. Chloe, realizing in one horrible instant that her sugar daddy was now a jobless, penniless fraud, let out a scream of pure animalistic rage. You ruined me, she shrieked at Marcus. She hurled her champagne flute. It missed him and shattered against the wall behind him. She tried to storm out, but a wall of furious guests, my friends, my colleagues, blocked her path, calling her a homewrecker. Matilda, her face the color of ash, clutched her heart. She saw her son's future and her own. We later learned she had mortgaged her house to pay for Dawson's retainer evaporate. She made a small O sound and crumpled to the floor in a dead faint. No one moved to help her. I looked at the chaos I had orchestrated, the smoking ruins of my husband's life. I gently placed the microphone back on its stand. Thank you all for coming, I said, my voice projecting across the room. Please enjoy the appetizers. Marcus paid $45,000 for them. I picked up my purse. I turned my back to my gasping, ruined husband, and I walked. I walked out of the grand ballroom, my head held high, my steps even and measured. I did not run. I did not look back. I walked past the stunned staff, through the opulent lobby, and out into the cool, clean Atlanta night. I was free. The divorce was not a battle. It was a surrender. Marcus, jobless, and a social pariah in Atlanta, after the Takedown Toast video made the rounds, had no resources to fight. He and his mother, who had to sell her beautiful Buckhead home to cover her debts, moved into a small rented apartment in the suburbs. He had to sell his car to pay me back my half of the party money. I sold the Atlanta condo, my condo, and kept 100% of the proceeds. That was a year ago. I am not in Atlanta anymore. I am writing this from my new home, the beautiful sun-drenched condo in Miami Beach that Aunt Beatrice left me. My balcony overlooks the turquoise ocean. The air smells of salt and flowers. I am no longer an accountant. I used my inheritance, my freedom, and my new life to finally do what I had always dreamed of. I started a small, independent publishing house. I named it Beatrice Press after the aunt who had saved me without ever knowing me. We specialize in translations and in publishing the works of older, undiscovered African American authors, the voices who, like me, were told to be quiet for too long. I do not think of those 25 years as a waste. They were a long, hard winter. They taught me patience. They taught me to balance the books literally and figuratively. And they taught me that a woman's worth is not defined by the man who stands beside her, but by the ground she claims for herself. Marcus wanted a public show. He wanted to watch me break. Instead, he and 100 guests got to watch me be reborn. Every story here carries a truth that can change your heart. Watch, share, and stay in our circle of wisdom. Did my story resonate with you? Which part of this family drama touched your heart the most? And what would you have done in my shoes? I would be honored to read your thoughts and your own experiences in the comments below. If you believe in the power of faith, dignity, and getting justice, please consider sharing this story with someone who may need to hear it. And please subscribe to this channel for more life stories just like this one. Thank you so much for listening. I'm looking forward to reading your comments.